In this video, we'll be going over subflows, as found in the toolbox under the transformation sections, as you see here with the subflow component. So a subflow is basically a data flow that encapsulates more complex logic and abstracts that away from an outer flow, including data flows and subflows, as subflows are recursive. So in this case, you can see we have a source data file being routed to two different destinations through a subflow. And if we open the tree here, you can see that we have two things. We have an input as well as an output, complete with fields that we can map into and fields that we can map from. So we really don't know much more about what this thing does other than the interface it gives us. To see what it is, what's actually going on in this black box, we can right-click, select Edit File, and this will open the actual subflow, which is doing the actual work behind that black box. So in this case, you can see it looks exactly like a regular data flow with some transformations and stuff and inputs and outputs going on here. But to the outside world, in this case, it looks just like just a regular transformation, and we don't have to worry about the details of it. So there's a couple of different reasons why you would use a subflow. One is this exact reason, where you're basically abstracting that complexity away from someone or another data flow. Another possibility of why you might want to use a data flow is for the case where your data flows become very complex, as you see here. So what typically happens, though, when you have a data flow that becomes very complex is you start to see things that can be refactored. So for example, I have a series of maps and transformations being this kind of a pattern being repeated over and over again. So I can actually simplify this data flow by taking this group of maps and transformations and sticking that into its own subflow. So here, that's what I've done here, and just tagged on an input and an output to this subflow to be able to use in the outer data flow. So once I've done that, I can go ahead and take this complex data flow and for each section replace it with a subflow that represents that group of transformations. And here you can see this is the exact same subflow. If I open it up here, subflow input and output, and with this layout, and this is the exact same subflow being repeated 3 different times. But I don't have to define it 3 different times. I just have to basically drag and drop it onto the diagram 3 times. So this gives me a benefit of simplifying a data flow. So to create and start using subflows, there's 2 things you have to do. One, you have to create the subflow first of all. So the first thing you have to do is go File, New, and say New Subflow. So the first thing you'll notice is that this looks exactly like the data flow diagram. One thing you'll notice, though, is the SF or subflow extension. The subflow document itself has a couple of different restrictions as well as requirements. The first restriction is that this cannot be scheduled by itself. Only data flows and workflows can be scheduled. The subflow is not a standalone component. It must exist inside of another data flow or subflow. But to start creating it, you just go to the toolbox and you have all of your subflow, all of your data flow things available to you. One thing you'll notice, in addition to the regular stuff in the data flow, is you'll notice that we have a subflow section. So to create a subflow, we're going to need either an input or an output, but in this case I'm going to use both so that records can flow through it, and this becomes basically a transformation. So I'm going to select this, bring it up the layout editor, and define my own layout. Field C. Click OK. And now I'm going to go to the toolbox and drag some other transformation up here. In this case, a filter. And create the layout. I'm just going to create the layout by mapping in this case. And same thing with the output. So in this example, the subflow is not really doing anything, but you can imagine where you can create a completely different layout from your source destination and have a whole lot of transforming going on here. So now that I've created my subflow, I need to save it. I'm going to save it in a location that I know I'm familiar with. And now now that I have it saved, I can go ahead and use this subflow as a component. So to illustrate that, I'm going to go create a new data flow and start with my source file from the project. And here's my Excel file with a very similar layout. Go to the toolbox and then go navigate to the Subflow component, in this case, and drag and drop onto the designer. Now, at this point, I don't have any kind of tree or layout available to me until I right-click and select Properties. The first thing it prompts me for is the path for the Subflow file, in which case I will navigate to that location of that file. Here's the file. Click Open, and then click OK. So now I have the tree or the layouts available to me to map into and from. So here I can just start mapping into like this, as any other transformation. I can also, besides dragging and dropping from the toolbox, I can drag and drop from the project tree. So in this case here you can see where I have another subflow.sf, and I can just drag that directly onto the data flow and begin to use this in such a way to be able to immediately start mapping into it. So also notice that in the subflow that we created, we have an explicit subflow input. You can also create subflows, as I have done in this case, or not this case, in this case, where we have an explicit output, but we have a regular input, but it's shaded gray here, and what we've done is we've right-clicked and select Set Subflow as input. The advantage this gives you is that you can use this subflow or this data source file as a debugging tool. So I can go ahead and preview my data at this point and be able to create this subflow as if I were to create in a data flow along with a data driver. So what happens is that when you actually use this subflow, it ignores the actual type of source it is and just converts this to a regular subflow input at runtime. So that's it for subflows. Thank you for watching this video.